You know that feeling, right? You look around and you're thinking, I am working my tail off. My results are great, so why am I not getting ahead? It's really frustrating and honestly a little unsettling. We're always told to just put our heads down, do great work, and success will just happen. But what if that's not the whole story? Let's get into the real rules of the game.
Okay, let's talk about a guy named Rudy Crew. By, I mean, every possible measure, he was a total superstar. He was the superintendent for Miami-Dade schools, and he just crushed it. Student performance went up, he fixed the budget, he tackled overcrowding. The guy was so good that in 2008, he was named the single best school leader in the entire country. Think about that, the absolute peak of his profession.
So, what do you think his reward was for this just incredible performance?
He got fired. Yeah. Less than 6 months after being crowned the best in the nation, the guy is negotiating his severance package. And here's the kicker. This isn't some one-off weird story. It's a pattern, and it points to a huge misunderstanding that most of us have about how the world really works.
So this story, it reveals a simple, powerful, and yeah, kind of uncomfortable truth. Performance? That's just the price of admission. It gets you in the door, but it is not the key to winning the game.
So, why do we get this so wrong? Well, it all starts with this deep-seated bias we all have. This mental trap that really keeps us from seeing the world for what it is.
It's called the just world hypothesis. A social psychologist named Melvin Lerner was the first to really nail this down. See, our brains are wired to want the world to be fair and predictable. We want to believe that if we play by the rules and do good work, good things will happen to us. And look, it's a really comforting thought, but it's also a really dangerous one. Because here's the thing about believing the world is fair. It leads to a really dangerous consequence. We become passive. We think, oh, my good work will speak for itself. So we don't go out and build the relationships. We don't build a power base. And what's even worse, when we see somebody fail, like our guy Rudy Crew, our brain does this little trick where it decides, well, they must have deserved it. We actually end up blaming the victim.
And listen, this happens at the highest levels. Take a guy named James Walker. He was hired to build out Nomura Securities' Asian equity business. And he was a stud, recruited a top team, increased profits, got amazing rankings. But he totally failed to understand the political game inside the company. He just ignored all the rivalries and the internal opposition, put his head down, and focused only on performance. And guess what? He lost his job. The key takeaway here is he thought performance was the only thing that mattered.
Okay, so if burying yourself in your work is a trap, what's the alternative? Well, the first rule is simple. You have to be seen. In this game, being invisible is not a good thing.
Man, I love this quote because it just perfectly captures a career trap that so many of us fall into. It's this idea of becoming the foundation guy. You know who I'm talking about. They're absolutely essential. The whole house would collapse without them. But the problem is, they're buried underground. They do all this quiet, super effective work, and nobody notices until they leave. And look, you can have a decent career as a middle manager that way for sure, but you are never, ever going to gain real power. All right, now let's flip the script and look at the absolute opposite of the foundation guy, a man named Reginald Lewis. So get this, it's 1965. He's in a summer program at Harvard Law, but the rules are super clear. People in the program can't even apply for admission. Plus, Lewis hadn't even taken the entrance exam. So did he keep his head down and follow the rules? No way. He marched right into the dean's office and argued, with a straight face, that an association between him and Harvard would be mutually beneficial. I mean, can you imagine the sheer audacity? And it worked. He became the only person in the entire history of Harvard Law to get in without ever filling out an application. That is how you stand out.
So all of this brings up a really critical question. If it's not just about doing a great job, what are organizations actually rewarding? And the data here it's pretty startling, actually. One huge study looked at CEO pay and found that the company's actual performance, that accounted for less than 5% of how much the CEO got paid. Less than 5%. So what was the biggest factor, you ask? The size of the company. That accounted for over 40%. And this just lays it all out crystal clear. What gets rewarded is control over resources. It's power. It's not just about the results. Okay, so let's say you've made yourself visible. Great. But now the game shifts again. It's not just about getting noticed anymore. Now it's about controlling how people see you.
This is where perception literally becomes your reality.
This is one of my all-time favorite examples. Let's look at two legendary football coaches, John Madden and Bill Walsh. Now, John Madden had a way better winning percentage, 76%, compared to Bill Walsh's 61%. But here's the crazy part. Madden actually quit his job because he was afraid he was about to be fired. Bill Walsh, on the other hand, the guy was never, ever forced out of a job. So what was the difference? It was reputation. See, Walsh wasn't just seen as a great coach. He was known as the genius. And guess what? You don't fire a genius. His reputation was more powerful than Madden's better numbers.
So why is reputation so critical? Well, it's because of this thing our brains do called cognitive discounting. Basically, once we form a first impression of someone, our brain kind of locks it in. We then actively ignore or discount any new information that doesn't fit with that first impression. It means if you make a bad first impression, trying to change people's minds later is this brutal, exhausting, uphill battle. Honestly, it's often easier to just go to a new company than to try and fix a broken reputation.
And you can actually start shaping this perception today just with your body language. Think about it. When we feel nervous, what do? We tend to shrink, we kind of cave our chest in. Well, acting with power is all about doing the exact opposite. Stand up straight. Use short, direct, forceful gestures, not these big, loopy, circular ones. When you walk into a room, move toward people, don't shy away. And maintain direct eye contact. These seem like small things, but they send massive signals about your confidence and your authority.
But we gotta be honest about this. Chasing power isn't all upside. It comes with some serious costs. It's a trade-off, and you really need to understand what you're signing up for before you dive in. First off, you're gonna be living under a microscope. I mean, the CEO of Boeing got fired for consensual affair, something that would be a complete non-issue for most regular employees. Second, all this time managing your image? That's time and energy you're not spending on your actual work. Third, that importance that people give you, it's usually tied to your job title, not to you. The day you leave that role, the phone stops ringing. And finally, and this is the one that really surprises people, power can be literally addictive. Just listen to this. This is from Nick Binkley, who used to be the vice chairman at Bank of America. He left this huge, powerful role on his own terms, but the withdrawal was so intense, both physically and mentally, that he actually compared it to getting off hard drugs. That loss of access, of people deferring to you, of just having influence, it was a total shock to his system. So, at the end of the day, here's the crucial takeaway. Doing a good job isn't optional. It is absolutely mandatory. It's the baseline. But thinking that's the finish line? That's the single biggest mistake you can possibly make. Performance gets you a ticket into the stadium, but it's not going to win you the trophy. So, understanding these rules about visibility, about reputation, about strategically building influence, that's the first step. The next question, though, that's a personal one for you to answer. Now that you know how the game is really played, are you willing to step onto the field?